I wanted to share a little video about everything that I brought with me on our recent road trip across Canada and what I actually ended up using. Because sometimes I tend to overpack on trips and never actually have any art making time. And then I realized I brought all that stuff for no reason. So I wanted to show you what I packed and what I actually ended up using. So I actually packed less than I originally had on my list. And because for this trip, I tend to be an overpacker because I don't like not having something if I need it. And I don't want to buy something if I have it already. So I make a very thorough list of all of the things we pack. And then this trip, I decided to downsize it because I knew we had access to laundry. We had a very full schedule of activities, but we also had a lot of time in the car. We spent 35 hours driving across the country. We were going to Calgary for Stampede and a whole bunch of and Banff and different places like that. There was 4 families getting together. So I had actually very limited art making time, but I did try to still ensure that I did, especially when we were on breaks on our drive. So I got this little carrying case and I actually really loved it. It worked out well. I'm trying to figure out if I want to like stitch through it or make some embellishments or paint on it or something, because right now it looks kind of like a lunchbox maybe. I don't know. So in this pocket I had where I collected little ephemera bits, but I had this little envelope of little bits of ephemera. So I restrained myself to pieces smaller than this envelope. And in here was papers, stickers. I did pull from some of this, but not actually a whole lot because really I only worked, I think, 2 times. So that was that. And then I collected little bits while we were away. Oh, got this nice little sticker. I think that one is actually my son's because I used mine in my notebook. So this came with actually 3 of these inserts. This one's permanently attached and then there's 2 more that can Velcro in, but I took them out so that I could have the space because I knew I wasn't bringing a whole ton of pens and things. So I curated a little palette of pencil crayons. And then I had a paintbrush, a paint pen. This is a really chunky, nice black gel pen, fine liner, Stabilo all, 2 weights of pencils, white pen, brush pen, Apple pencil, pale green highlighter, and then my trusty favorite pen. So I'm just going to take out everything that I didn't use. And I think that'll be an interesting way to see what was left. So I didn't use this or this, never used my Apple pencil. So just use these 5 here. For colors, now I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look. So I only brought this traveler's notebook and this is what I worked in. So I bought a sticker and tape and I tried to just journal every day what we were doing. And then I had this little junk journal. So these were 2 pages that I did. And then, oh yeah, this was not quite dry. Painted that and started pressing some flowers. I think that's all I did in here. So for colors, my children used these more than I did. Did I use them? No. Ooh, that is my worst sound. That is a pencil being dropped on the floor, which means I likely broke lead inside that pencil. I don't think I used... So I used white and this artichoke color. In here, I had dongles. I did use that, or my children did. I brought extra pen refill, didn't need that. I did use a knife. I used scissors, but my kids actually used them more. I brought my tape card, and I did use a couple pieces of tape. This was extra pens. I used this one, and I used this one. I don't think I used that. Brought this in case we were having a fire, didn't use that. Bonus chapstick, if you know me, you know I need this all the time, and it's because I grew up in Alberta where we got addicted to it because it's so dry, and Alberta is where we were going to visit, so I made sure I had extras, but I didn't actually use this one. Didn't use that. Ooh. Nail file, didn't use that. Okay, I did use water, and I brought my paint palette. I did use that, and I was really happy that I upgraded to my bigger one because it's not too heavy and it's not too big. I did use my pencil sharpener. I kept it in a little baggie because it puts out little bits of pencil, and usually it gets really messy in here, and I liked having it in the baggie. Used this an awful lot for my children who, for the last 2 days driving, maybe 3 days driving, they drew almost the entire drive, which made this artist mom really happy. I did use the clip. I am glad I brought that. And I can't remember if I used that tape. I know for sure my kid did. No, I didn't use that, but my kid did. This also became a collection of Lego pieces. And then in here was more ephemera bits, or I actually cut up the ephemera and I didn't have a garbage, so it became my garbage. So that is everything I used, and I made very, very little art. So I painted this tree, 2 trees in the background at one stop, and later came back, and I really didn't like it because it was growing at this weird angle. I just didn't like it. It didn't look good. So I thought, I'm gonna glue some things down. This was from a coffee cup sleeve. This was a sticker that we got at Stampede, piece of tape. This is some of the ephemera that I had packed. The acrylic markers worked lovely over top of my painting, and that's all I did. And then this was already lettered on here. I added some pink and painted this little flower, and then I'm just pressing some flowers that my husband had picked for me when we were on the side of Lake Superior that were really pretty, and they were so purple, and the color is just already disappearing out of them. And I think I pressed more in here too. Yeah, like the color's almost completely gone, but I'll probably add those into a spread somewhere too. And then just these little bits of ephemera that I collected. So really shows me next time that I don't have to pack as much. I could pack a much smaller kit. My Kindle also fit in this pouch too, which was great because when we were going somewhere, like we went to the beach, I just brought this. I didn't have to bring a whole bag of stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Very minimal supplies needed, and it just shows, especially when you're working in little junk journals that have background color already on your pages, how few supplies you actually need to create some art. So hope you liked this little tour, and you consider when you're packing for a trip, whether you need to bring a lot or a little. But tell me, what is your preference? Are you a minimalist while packing, or do you have to have a little bit of everything from your studio for traveling? And I would also like to know, if you want to share, do you do a lot of art practice when you're on family trips? Do you set aside time for it, or do you just find moments in between your busy schedule of vacationing if it is busy? Anyway, leave those answers in the comments, and I would love it if you liked and subscribed or shared or do anything to help. That would be wonderful. But thank you so much for being here and for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye.